Merry Christmas, everybody. To you and to everybody following us over the internet, we wish you a blessed Christmas season which begins today. During the long, dark winter of 1864 at Petersburg, Virginia, the Confederate Army was facing the Union divisions during the Civil War. Late one evening, Major General George Pickett of the Confederacy received word that his wife had given birth to a beautiful baby boy. Up and down the line, the Southerners began building huge bonfires in celebration of the event. The fires did not go unnoticed in the northern camps, and soon General Grant sent a patrol to see what was going on. The scouts returned with the message that Pickett had a son, and that these were the celebration fires. It so happened that Grant and Pickett had been contemporaries at West Point and knew each other pretty well. In spite of now finding themselves on different camps of the war. To honor the occasion, General Grant also ordered that bonfires be set up to celebrate the occasion. It was a peculiar night during the bloody Civil War. For miles on both sides of the lines, fires burned. No shots were fired. No war was fought that day. Only light celebrating the birth of a child. And today we also gather to celebrate the birth of a child that would change the history of humanity. The birth of Jesus is also celebrated with many lights. You see them everywhere, in Christmas trees, outside our homes, at the stores, in church, and so on. And this is fitting because, after all, Jesus is the light of the world. The good news of Christmas is that in the midst of a deep darkness, there came light. This light is not a temporary flicker. No, it is an eternal flame that keeps on burning. In today's first reading, we hear the prophet Isaiah say, "The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Upon those who dwelt in gloom, a light has shone." When the prophet was writing these words, there was a lot of darkness in the land of Israel. The northern kingdom had been destroyed. Its inhabitants had been taken prisoner to Assyria. The current king had abandoned God. He had gone as far as to worship pagan gods. In the midst of chaos and darkness, the prophet speaks words of encouragement. He speaks of a child that would be called Wonder Counselor, God Hero, Father Forever, Prince of Peace. Isaiah may have had in mind the heir of the king, who would become eventually a king himself, and he would be a good and righteous man who put all his trust in the Lord. But this oracle has been interpreted by us Christians as referring to Jesus. This child, Jesus, would have the wisdom of Solomon, hence the title Wonder Counselor. He would have the prowess of David, hence the title God Hero. He would have the charisma of Moses, hence the title Father Forever. And he would have the virtues of the early patriarchs, hence Prince of Peace. This child that the prophet speaks about announces the coming of Jesus, who would be the light for all the nations. The people who walked in darkness have seen a great light. Upon those who dwelt in gloom, a light has shone. You see, God is not afraid of darkness. On the contrary, there where he sees darkness, he brings his light. We too live in a world that seems to have been enveloped in darkness. Over 1.7 million people have died from COVID-19 around the world since the beginning of the pandemic. Millions more have been infected, and many are still dealing with the after effects of the illness. I don't think that there is a single person in the world that has not been affected, either directly or indirectly, by this pandemic. Not only have we had to adapt to new protocols and regulations, but we still have wars, hunger, unemployment, racism, loneliness, pain, suffering. Thus, we do not come here today on Christmas Day to deny the existence of evil, pain, and darkness. You see, the scriptures don't comfort us saying that things are really not that bad. Rather, the scriptures affirm that the darkness is real and present, both in the world and in our lives. But the scriptures also affirm that there is a light at the end of the tunnel. The scriptures assure us that Jesus is our light, that light who shines in the darkness, and darkness cannot overcome it. And this is what we celebrate today. Today we rejoice at the fact that Jesus Christ has come into our dark, cold, and cruel world. In the midst of all the chaos, a light has shone, and it will never be extinguished. There may be times in our lives when we feel that the light will be snuffed out, but the Christmas story affirms that whatever happens, the light still shines. After all, we live in a God-invaded world, and where there is God, there is hope. The darkness is real, but because of Christmas, it will never be so dark that you can't see the light. Through all of the fears, disappointments, and sorrows that we experience in this life, God is with us. He is Emmanuel, and His presence gives meaning to our lives. The Christmas story thus reminds us that light is always stronger than darkness, that life overcomes death, that love conquers hatred, that truth prevails over falsehood, that light has come into our world in the person of Jesus. My dear friends, receive His light in your hearts today and go out to share that light in a dark and dreary world. Amen. Merry Christmas.